Welcome to Radical Grace, Interpreting God's Message for Yourself, Session 1. And this is a little video to accompany Session 1. My name is Michelle Shirley, and this is a Bible study that I've developed to help people go back to the original language and figure out the true meanings of some tricky verses that may be concerning to you, and you just want to know what they really mean. So if you'll look in your handout under How to Research Bible Texts, we're going to start with step 1. We are at blueletterbible.org. This is what the main screen looks like at the time of this recording. And we are going to look up the first passage that was but what about this verse for myself? And that is Matthew 25:46. And I'm going to click the search button, and you can search about 21 other versions, but since people are more familiar with the language of the King James Version, I usually start here. And once you click, it will bring you to the verse itself. And then, if you'll notice, when you hover over that scripture reference and then click it, it expands down. It also shows you the rest of the chapter, because we know that picking out single verses, you cannot get the context and who the audience is. It's important to read all around your verse of question. But this is the one that I wanted to look at when I first started my research. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. So I wanted to target everlasting. I want to know if it really means forever. Punishment. And here we have eternal. So I bet that's the same as everlasting. So when we scroll down, you will see we've got a couple of different Greek spellings. Sometimes they are just a tad different, but they are the same word. And then underneath it, it gives you the translation of these Greek letters into the Western alphabet. And that can save you a lot of time. You don't have to have a chart with all the Greek letters and translate those. So let's look. All right. The word for everlasting is aionios. And I may not be saying that exactly right. You can click here if you want a pronunciation. This G means it's in the Greek. This is number 166. And this is the Strong's definition. And we're going to look at it, but we're going to go beyond that. And if there's one thing you get from this session, it's going to be do not depend on these Strong's definitions. All right, so we notice it's an adjective, and I always like to look at the key word also, or the root word. So let's look at that real quickly, and you'll notice it's ion. This is where we get our English word eon. So I'm going to go back. So that was a noun. If they add ios to the end, it's an adjective, and you will notice this if you get to looking at more verses, more words. You'll notice when they add ios, it changes to an adjective. And in the King James, it is without beginning and end, that which has always been. So that's why it gets translated into eternal, forever, everlasting. Okay? Figure out what a word actually means is to look at all the other places that it's used. And so we have to start in the Old Testament, actually, because the scriptures that Jesus read in the synagogue, those were already translated from Hebrew into Greek. And the word that was the Hebrew word that got translated into ion was olam. So we're going to look real briefly, just a couple of verses here, to show you that there are numerous verses where ion cannot mean never ending or forever. For example, Jonah was in the fish forever. the word olam was used, but only until he left 3 days later. That's definitely not forever. Animal sacrifices were to be offered forever, olam, but only until ended by the work of Christ. Okay, now let's take a look at the New Testament passages. Okay, and let's see if eternity, which is what all of these uses were translated to in English, let's see if they make sense. Okay, and I didn't type the entire verse, just the portions that we need to see. This is from Matthew 24:3. What will be the sign of the end of the eternity? That can't be forever, can it? Doesn't have, because forever doesn't have an end. I'm with you to the end of the eternity. Worthy to attain that eternity. Since the eternity began, conformed to this eternity, not only in this eternity, but also in that which is to come. So what would be a better translation of this word aion or aionios? How about I'm with you to the very end of the age, which just means an undetermined amount of time, but it does not necessarily mean forever. In some cases, there's no way that those verses meant forever in those uses. So we're going to continue on. Now that we know that this word for everlasting, aionios, may not mean forever, now let's look at the word for punishment, and that is kolasis. Now if you'll notice, there are a couple of, they end different on these Greek terms. So this one is the one that ends with S. This one would end with an N, but they're still the very same word. All right, so we're going to look up and see what the Strong's definition is. Okay, correction, punishment, penalty. Torment. That's a little more harsh. Okay, now here's the big step that I want you to learn and utilize every time you look up one of these words. I want you to just do a Google search, and we're going to look up kolasis. What does the Greek word kolasis mean in English? And if what the resources that are shown to me are just another repeat of the Strong's definition, I don't go there. I'm looking for more information beyond that. And so let's take a look at this one. And this one says kolasin, but it is the same word. You see that V there? That's the N. All right. And this is what is so incredibly important. If we read this section right in here, and this is from William Barclay. He was a Scottish, I think, Bible study writer. The word for punishment is kolasis. This word was originally a gardening word, and its original meaning was pruning trees. Now let's stop right here for just a minute. When you prune a bush or a tree, is your purpose to destroy it? No, it's to make it produce more. It's a good thing. Okay? We'll keep reading. In the Greek, there are two words for punishment. Okay? Timoria and kolasis. And there is quite a difference or a definite distinction between them. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Aristotle and Plato. And yes, they were great thinkers that were, about 3 centuries before Jesus, but still in the same area, still speaking Greek. Aristotle defines the difference. Kolasis is for the sake of the one who suffers it. Timoria is for the sake of the one who inflicts it. And Plato says that no one punishes a wrongdoer simply because he has done wrong. That would be to take unreasonable vengeance. We punish a wrongdoer in order that he may not do wrong again. And if you're good parents, that's why you do punish your children. You do it in a loving way so that they will know that this is something they've done that they shouldn't do anymore. Clement of Alexandria defines kolasis as pure discipline and timoria as the return of evil for evil. And this guy says that kolasis is given that a man may be corrected, and timoria is given that dignity and authority may be vindicated. The difference is quite clear in Greek, and it is always observed. Timoria is a retributive punishment. Kolasis is remedial discipline. Okay? And it's always given to amend and to cure. So if we go back and we look at these new meanings that we've discovered, and I want to also point out that eternal, it's again the same word aionios, so it doesn't mean forever. So let's go back and look at the verse again. And these shall go away into, we'll say, an age of, or a time of remedial correction, but the righteous into life of the age. That kind of changes things, doesn't it? Especially the type of punishment, and it doesn't last forever. Okay. Now, of course, I had other, but what about this verses? And we're going to go over on your handout to where it says, give it a try. We're going to try another one. And it is 2 Thessalonians 1:9. Now, instead of going back to the home screen, I'm just going to start right up here this time. 2 Thessalonians 1:9. And if I just hit enter, nothing happens. I have to make sure I click the little play button there. Find my verse. All right. Who shall be punished again with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power. All right. I want to know. I'm going to look again at punished to see if it's the same word. Look at everlasting to make sure it's what we've already studied. I also want to look at destruction. Okay. So here we go. Shall be punished this is pronounced DK. And you can really go down a rabbit hole with this one. But let's look at the Strong's definitions. What is custom? What is right? Could be like a trial or a judicial hearing. I also put to suffer punishment. Judgment, punish, vengeance. Okay? Now let's go and look up. Make sure it's okay. And when you type this in, you do not have to worry about getting that accent over the E. You can just say, what does the Greek word DK mean in English? And again, I'm going to look for resources that are not from the Strong's, since we've already seen that. And this one from philosophyindex.com is a pretty good one. And if you scroll down, the information's at the bottom. All right, and again, we're talking a little bit about Plato explaining things. He says it's like justice. And that our word justice, our English word, has so many more meanings behind it that are full of vengeance that those weren't the same definitions in ancient Greece. It means something like behaving in accordance with nature or how your group normally behaves, okay? It does not have moral implications. It does not speak of how things should be or act, but rather how they normally are, how they usually act. Okay? So if we can remember that justice is a little bit different we can, and it means setting things right or the way they should be. Also, this word came from the Greek goddess Dike. She was Lady Justice, equated with the Roman goddess Justitia. I think I'm saying that right. So there's an idea for you. Acting the way one normally does in one situation. Okay? So now let's go back to our Blue Letter Bible. All right. So this kind of punishment is more like, it's not punished. It's more setting things right the way they should be. All right. Now let's go down. Everlasting. Look, it's the same word. Aionios. But here's an interesting one. The word for destruction is alethros. And real quickly, we will look at the Strong's. This is going to be real eye-opening to you, I think. Okay, ruin, destroy, death. Here's something else I noticed. A prolonged form of punishment. Sounds pretty cruel. So you get the idea for alethros there. Now when we go to Google, what does the Greek word alethros mean in English? Let's see what we find. And this was so cool because I was so disturbed when I was looking this up. And the first thing my eyes first thing I laid eyes on was this Wikipedia definition. And I didn't even have to go to the site because look here. Alethros translate roughly in ancient Greek to destruction, but often with a positive connotation, as in the destruction required for and preceding renewal. Oh, man. Oh, that's great. So now, if we go back and reread this verse, who shall be served justice? Okay. Who shall be things and set right with a time of destruction with the purpose of renewal from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power. Now, sometimes people read this and they think, oh, they're going to be punished and go away from the presence of the Lord. But no, this means because of being in the presence of the Lord, these things are going to happen. Things are going to be set right. And it's not going to last forever. It's going to be correction in order to renew. Okay? A destroying of the old so that the new can come forth. And from the glory of his power. Glory is like light. Doesn't all this research here change things? It does. It changed everything for me. And I know this is just the tip of the iceberg. But now you know how to do your own research. You just go to blueletterbible.org. You can search single words. You want to look up hell. We will get into that later. But all those verses we've been talking about that make you think, they allude to God being a torturer and punishing people forever in hell. I think you're going to find that there are some deep hidden meanings, and only those people who want to really, really know the character of God are going to look at this. If they just go back to their whatever they read on a normal basis, anything in English, it's going to have it in there a little bit. But if you go back to the original and you do exactly the steps that we just did, look at the Strong's, but also look at what you can find just by Googling. There's more to be found, okay? the things, the definitions that are in the Blue Letter Bible, for the Strong's definitions, I mean, people who did those already had doctrines in their heads that they wanted to make sure were still gotten in there. So what we want to do is go back to the original scriptures, and they are beautiful. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you later.